Well,
Yeah.
I made that mistake. I started back into, once the kind of whatever shelter in place started and the pools closed. I foolishly started running every day for about an hour, and not fast, but uh, so after about 6 weeks of that, I just got out of my bed one morning and was completely lame. So I've been to the PT, and I'm back doing yoga again, and I'll be running again in a day or two, but I'll be a little bit more judicious about
Mm.
how I go about it. I was just trying to instantly replace. The same week the pools closed, the climbing gym closed, and I thought I was going to lose my mind, because like, what am I going to do now? I can't swim, I can't climb. So anyway, lesson hopefully learned. We'll see.
You mean you didn't rush out to Home Depot and buy up plywood and bolts and start, to create your own climbing wall somewhere in the
No,
garage?
no. I've got pull-up bars and TX straps, but it's yeah, it would actually be nice to have something like that at home, because what's one of the things that happens, if you climb, when you can't go to a climbing, like a outdoor site or a climbing gym, climbing, the lovely thing about it is that it's minimally repetitive, because the moves are all in different directions and
Yeah.
different forces.
Yeah.
So when you're locked out of your climbing and you start doing pull-ups, usually you hurt yourself within about a week or two, or hanging on the hangboard for
Yeah.
forever. So not a great idea.
No. It feels good to do pull-ups, but you don't want to do too much in one direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, on that, well, I was going to get into running later, but since we're all on that, we're all kind of a little bit of a running mode.
Yeah.
I've done for years is I run every other day. I mean, occasionally I'll run back-to-back days and stuff, but it works for me well mentally, and then I can handle longer runs, but then
Yeah.
I have that day in between, and my joints definitely appreciate that. I mean, if I wanted to supercharge, if I wanted to bump up to another level a little bit quickly, I might do it for a week where I maybe get in 4 or 5 runs. So that means 2 runs somewhere would be back to back. But if I were to run 4 or 5 days a week regularly, then I would again have to do a very gradual ramp up, just because I notice if I'm putting in 35, 40-mile weeks, I can feel I get tired in a couple of weeks and I need to rest a few extra days. My joints just need to. I mean, it's good, but it's just like, things get a little weak and I need to give it time to recharge. And so just gradually increasing mileage. I don't statistically, looking at the stats for running and health, I think it's around like 25 miles, under 30 miles is a good healthful amount of mileage for a week. So above 30 is not necessary for health purposes, but I do get a kick out of going harder and longer and getting into that state.
Longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, there've been an awful lot of running injuries in the past 2 months. From people trying to replace because it's one of the few things you can do.
That's what I was going to say. We're replacing swimming and all that with our running.
Well, we even noticed too, my husband and I tried going for bike rides. We quickly learned we couldn't do it on weekends because there was too many people on the paths. So we were stuck to having to either walk or run on the weekends, save bike riding for the week, because it was too hard to get around everyone in the park or along in the neighborhoods and things like that. So
hey, 5 a.m. is like heaven outside. Nobody's there.
True. It's very quiet, and and with the lockdown, the air is blissfully clean. It smells like the mud around here.
Wow.
I often go out at 5:30 in the morning, and I've never experienced the air to be this fresh.
Wow.
So that is nice, and enjoyed that part of it.
Definitely. You know, in college, so Denise, do you ride as well? Jeff, you ride a little bit too.
Yeah.
You both ride?
Not enough. I need to get back into it more. But I'm a pretty fair weathered rider. So, and I don't like, when I was trying to get in biking shape, I didn't want to try to start like in February, March, only to have to take another month off because of the rain. So I'd always kind of put it off until later in the season, just because I don't like riding in the rain. I don't feel safe riding in the rain.
Yeah. There's a lot more risk involved in the wet roads, definitely.
It just wasn't that important to me.
When I was in college, I was a triathlete, and I had cyclist roommate friends, and so they got me into, every once in a while we'd go out on these midnight rides. We'd wait till there's a full moon or a really bright moon, and we'd go out in the middle of the night. It was wild because you get out. When we lived in Corvallis, so we had these beautiful country roads everywhere, and it was pretty nice. You could turn off your light after you get out of the city, and you're just cruising out these roads, and it's amazingly bright out there, just under moonlight. Of course, you had to pay a little bit more attention to little rocks and we call road cucumbers or something, any object in the road that would just, smash your wheel. But it was very, just like a different world being out there in the bright moonlight. So no traffic, of course, no log trucks.
You ride down to Monroe on Bellflower and out there.
Yeah, that was great train down there.
Nice ride.
Yeah, Corvallis is nicely positioned because you could go west towards the coast, and then you could shoot up to Kings Valley, and you could go up north towards Monmouth. You could go east towards Lebanon, all the flatlands. You could go south, towards Eugene. So it was a really ideal place, flats or mountain. So,
yeah.
I like hills. In Salem, I live right smack in the middle off of Market Street. So I have to run about 2 miles before I can get to any topography. So
That's a good warm up.
Yeah, it's a nice warm up. Of course, you wouldn't want to have to start come out the front door and run up a straight hill. But,
well, we started on our front door, then we had to go down really steep,
okay.
which is not ideal either.
Yeah, coming back isn't so great.
Right. Yeah.
So on running, doing the run, gradually easing into running, doing a run-walk intervals like you said you're doing, Denise, is a really good way. As a matter of fact, Galloway, you might have heard of this guy named Galloway. He developed this run-walk concept for racing. And apparently, a lot of people have pretty good results doing this, where you run very intense for maybe a mile, and then you walk for a quarter of a mile or like a minute or something, and then you run again. And I don't know statistically how that plays out to different age groups and different competitive levels, but what I've seen so far is that a lot of people can actually build PRs. They actually end up having an average run that's faster than if they just tried to run continuously. So
particularly on longer runs like a half marathon or a marathon.
Yeah.
He's got I've got a book of his called Run Till You're 100, and apparently it's also supposed to reduce injuries.
Yeah, I would think so.
It sounds like a very similar rhythm to new learning acquisition, where you're supposed to they found your retention is much better when you study really intensely and then you go and take a nap or go do something else and then come back. It sounds like a very similar rhythm.
Yeah, I suppose for neurons and also for your small tissues, the delicate tissues, because that stress, under the running, the pounding and repetitive movement, you're not merely stressed and then leveling out, it's accumulating step after step. And, the tissues, we can, by stopping periodically and just walking, everything just kind of releases, because our walking gait has a different mechanics and a different activation of muscles. Yeah. And so it allows the loads to shift and relax, and then we go back into it, and then it kind of probably doesn't drop down to zero, but it drops down to a lower level, and then it can accumulate again. It gives more room for flexibility. It's just, I've been a runner since, I was 16 years old, and I have to work really hard at just running slow when it's time to run slow, because there's that middle zone that is just the death of performance, where when you're supposed to run hard, you don't run hard enough, and when you're supposed to run slow, you don't run slow easy enough. It's this middle purgatory in the middle that you know, we kind of fall into the rut because it's like, we're working hard, but it's kind of a comfortable discomfort, and we're too comfortable with that. And so I'm trying to work on breaking out of that rut. So I go out and I'll do sprint work specifically, and then I'll go out and try to do these longer, slower runs. But I really struggle. That's why I'm thinking, Alex, you need to be my guru or something. I'll go with you. We could just like do the Japanese monk running, you know, just.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I went to see the physical therapist, he had me run for him, and apparently in trying to run slower, one of the things that I did was shorten my gait too much. And he said, you're braking a lot.
Okay.
And that's what's annoying your hip. And
okay.
So he had me, you know, work on increasing my stride, because if, you know, I was using that, you know, there's a sports medicine guy named Maffetone who's worked with a lot of triathletes in particular, and a lot of runners over the years. And so he's got a formula which is very different than the standard formula for where your heart rate should be most of them when you're running. And if you're older, I mean, it's tough because it's 180 minus your age. Okay, I'm 76, so that puts me at 104.
Whoa.
You got to run pretty damn slow to keep your heart rate at 104. Now, I mean, and he's worked with elite triathletes who like have won the Ironman and getting them to really run much more slowly and just do, like you said, some sprint work to maintain that capacity to accelerate. And it's like reduced injuries tremendously. Their times actually improve in these competitive events. And so, you know, I just have to work on my mechanics so I can kind of keep my heart rate down. I don't try for like 104. I'm like, if 110 is fine. I mean, 110 is fine. That's low enough. But he's done all of these, like, he's tracked these athletes over time to show if you're running 10 to 15% faster than dictated by his formula, the injury rate just goes up and up and up. And so does the, you know, stress related things, just getting fatigue, too much fatigue. So your training's not effective.
Because running, I mean, it's a very, very linear line between the speed that you're running and the increase of forces, because it's just to run faster, you just simply have to exert more power to overcome gravity. And it's unlike swimming. Swimming is, because the water density has more of an exponential increase.
Right.
But the running, the forces, you just can't, your technique allows you to soften how the forces apply, but there are limits on how much you can actually reduce the maximum force, because you just have, your body weight is your body weight, and you can't change the body weight.
Body weight.
Running. So it has to hit the ground. So this is where technique is very, very important in running. And I came to the rediscovery of running technique later than I did for swimming. But when I did, it was an amazing transformation for me, which just revived my interest in running and running even longer.
I'm still working on that. You know, I've looked at like Pose and also Danny Dreyer, you know, Chi running.
Yeah. I first encountered, barefoot runners were the first people that like, what are you guys doing? You got no shoes on. They kind of opened the door. This is back in 2010. They opened the door for me to this whole concept, and I read Born to Run, and then the logic started to make sense. So there's natural running, and then sometime later I ran into Chi running, and then the last few years I've been studying Pose method and kind of taking those concepts, and I'm looking for the thread running through all of it. Now I'm into Dr. what's his name, Cucuzzola. I think if you look up natural running, his name comes up. His name comes up in some of these running books, natural running books. And Cucuzzola, trying to think if I have
I'll find it.
Looking down here on my book list here. Tread Lightly is a book. Let me pull it off my shelf.
Is his first name Mark Matt? Oh, I think I lost him audio-wise.
Retrieving his book now.
Okay. The book stack. Since we all like to share resources. So of course, Chi running is the.
Yeah, that's the first one I looked at.
So that's a good one, and he has a certain way of describing using focal points. This was often considered like the sister organization to Total Immersion, kind of a Total Immersion-like way of approaching.
Probably the case.
The two. Yeah, Danny Dreyer and Terry had corresponded. I've actually corresponded with Danny Dreyer a few times, trying to set up some events back in the day. And then Poe's method, Romanov. I think the concepts are very similar, but he really approaches it more like kind of giving a more of a scientific explanation behind how things work. And I use a lot of these explanations now when I teach running. And then I've been running across Jay Dechari. He was at the University of Virginia, a master's in PT there, and he was running the most sophisticated running lab in the entire nation. He had this awesome pressure treadmill and all these diagnostic equipment. So he really became kind of a leader in the research there. And then I just found out he moved to Bend, Oregon. Now he's in the Mecca, the new Mecca of triathletes in Bend, Oregon. He's got a lab there and he's working with people. But he wrote, this is a great book called Anatomy for Runners.
Oh, Anatomy for Runners.
Yeah. So Dechary is Dicharry. And this is a great book because it really explains how healing works, not how the mechanics work, how healing works and why, and how the forces in the body work. He has great exercises in here. He has a newer book called Running Rewired that really talks about building strength and very specific things. He's got really nice whole sets of full color diagrams on different exercises and stuff. I think on one hand, you pick up a book and they've got all these pictures and diagrams and exercises to do, and it's attractive on one hand, but I'm definitely now looking for somebody who can get the essentials in a simpler path, because you can really get overwhelmed with 20 or 30 different exercises. Like, well, which one should I use? And it's nice that they show you different variations, but it's like, well, which ones should I do? I only got limited time. And so I guess that's why I'm spending some of my time studying this, so that I can come to some understanding of how could we pare this down to just essentials. And then each individual could, off of this essential thread of exercise, like these essential ones, you could just pick a few additional ones that then meet your, each person's specific, developmental needs. Like for instance, I have a right Achilles tendon that is vulnerable to getting a little strained if I start doing sprinting work too aggressively. And so I've picked up some specific exercise to do to realign the scar tissue inside that tendon, and it's made it better. Now I'm much, much stronger because I do this one particular exercise that strengthens that. But I don't do these other ones that I don't feel that I don't need. So, and then another really good book here I had is called Tread Lightly. This one talks more about natural running. Obviously, they're not opposed to wearing shoes. They're talking about shoes, but they get some good argument here. But it is a little challenging if you pick up, 3 or 4 books all on running or natural running. You're going to get like some what seems like conflicting opinions about things and stuff.
Yeah.
So you got to, have an open mind and use a little critical thinking and be able to appreciate but let go of people's certain opinions. I don't know. It's a little challenging. Swimming and running are full of people who think like me, who think we know what we're talking about. And so just,
it looks like we're going to be running for a while. I saw that the city of Portland announced they're not opening any pools this summer.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
No public pools in Portland this summer.
Wow.
And so that may be, I'm guessing if that's the case in Portland, it'll probably be the case in Lane County too. And I don't know the extent to which that will apply to like private clubs.
Yeah.
Or, like places like the Y. But I think the very fact that the city pools are not, if they're not open in an area, it's going to put tremendous pressure if there is a pool open.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And make social distancing or overcrowding, really quite difficult.
Well, and I'm going to guess that public pools don't make money, so they don't necessarily have a lot of incentive financially to have to make those open. But private clubs do have a huge financial incentive to try to survive.
Right.
They need to open up. So yeah, that's a good point that you just pointed out. We're gonna maybe. So Denise, Friday mornings, man, we won't. We might have to like get there and stand and get in front of the line to get a lane.
I was just thinking about that just the last couple days about if they do open, how crowded is the pool going to be, and when am I going to want to try to go so I can avoid some of that?
Do you have to work 9 to 5, like very set hours? Is that what you do?
No, not really. I've been doing my runs later in the day now. I've been starting work earlier and running later, so I'm hoping to keep that up. And so I was hoping I could do the same with the pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you can be flexible, it would be helpful.
A lot of facilities, I've gotten some communication from a couple of different facilities, and there's a lot of consideration being given to appointments. So you don't just show up and hope to get a lane or see if that's a good time or not. You arrange to have an appointment, which means there'd be a reduction in use. But that's really the only way you can kind of control numbers.
I wouldn't mind that. I would schedule an appointment.
That might make people. That might actually help with their commitment to go.
Yeah.
I would love it. That's my climbing gym is talking about opening as soon as they're able, and just having a fixed number of people there by appointment to avoid overcrowding, and so.
Well, I'm going to be looking for some open water somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can last 6 months without being in water.
That's a long time, isn't it? I mean, it seems like a long time already, Yeah.
Well, one of the benefits though of them opening up parks and having hit us with the summer coming up ahead is we might have access to lakes like Subtle Lake or Hag Lake or Detroit Lake or any number one of those places that we could attempt a open water swimming.
Foster Lake is not too far from where you are.
Well, I keep thinking, oh, we'll just organize something. We'll all meet up at Foster Lake. No, we can't meet up as a group. It's just because that people would rally around that, right? We'd say, hey, we're all going to go there, and we'll be together, and we'll have the kayaks out and stuff. But
Yeah.
Well, we could pace them out, Matt, like we do in the DR. Whenever we swim that 2K or 4K, people spread out pretty far.
I know what we could schedule appointments. You could have your personal kayak escort. We could just stay there all day and take appointments and just escort people
back and forth
around the course on the lake.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, we have the Willamette River downtown Salem, but I mean, I lead the clinics in the summertime for swimmers, but I don't know. It just doesn't quite meet my standards for inviting water.
No.
Right. Yeah.
Too far downstream. The river looks pretty nice in Eugene still, but it gets pretty murky.
Yeah, it's not. I haven't. I mean, I used to spend a good deal of time underwater in that river when I was learning to roll my kayak, but as nice as it looked, I often noted that if I spent a lot of time rolling, the next day my stomach would be slightly upset.
Okay.
So there's some bacterium in that.
There's enough critters, microscopic critters.
Microscopic critters in that water. Yeah.
That is definitely a nice thing about being around salt water, is that it is annoying, to have salt in your mouth and stuff if you do it infrequently. But it was very saline, extremely saline where I lived in the Mediterranean. But really, I just got used to it after a while, and it just didn't bother me. I mean, of course, if I stayed in there for more than 2 hours, I'd start to get the salt burns on the tongue. But as far as the taste in the mouth and it going in the nose, it really lost any sort of discomfort with it.
Actually, fantastic when you have a cold.
But it's great. Yeah, it's just great. Cleans out your ears and your nose and your mouth. So I know there's bacteria in the salt, but it doesn't bother us apparently. So I do miss that.
We caught, when we were in the DR, I think it was the last time, I think I caught a head cold, and Matt and I went swimming every day, and I got over that cold in 3 days. Fastest cold I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it's just because it was flushing out twice a day.
Nice.
Yeah.
I noticed.
So we all need to move.
I think swimming regularly keeps my ears clean too, because I put a swab in there today and I pulled it. I'm like, oh, I've never seen it this bad.
Yeah.
So I had to do this little peroxide on my ears earlier today, because it never looks like that. And the only way it could be that way is, but then again, you don't want to think about what's in the pool water. This is just.
No, you don't.
Because if it's cleaning my ears out, it's cleaning your ears out too.
Best just not to think about it.
The denial that we're in as pool swimmers.
Yeah, that's right.
We just don't want to think about it.
No, there at one of the facilities I was working at, some nudists scheduled pool time, but they had to do it after hours, and they had to get special lifeguards in. People that
what kind of special lifeguards for nudist swimming?
They had to be over 18 and feel comfortable. They couldn't force anybody to work the shift. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's really gross." And I'm like, I don't understand what much of a difference that is between being naked and having to spin it a lot, quite frankly.
Not a whole lot.
So
not a whole lot.
They're not any less clean.
No.
So, as we're thinking about, okay, we're hoping that a pool will open up soon for us, right? We're already attempting to go out and walk and run and be active that way. So we know we need this gradual on-ramp for running, but how about for getting back in the pool before we can actually get in the pool? Let's think about what are some ways we can just get our bodies ready to, what can we do for our bodies to get ready to go back in the pool? And then once we're in the pool, how do we need to approach that? What are your ideas for how you need to approach that swimming, so that we don't just instantly have the expectation that we're going to perform like we did, 2 months ago when we had to stop. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I go so slow that I probably will be able to jump right in and do what I was doing. I'll let these two guys also chip in here. I'm probably talking too much, but I started as a result of my running injury, doing yoga every day. And I'm also doing some core work. I'm not too worried about my leg strength or arm strength, but my core, and then stability, which is a huge issue in the water for me, because you don't have the reference of that firm foundation of the earth, to anchor you. And so getting the right level of stability so you don't wobble more in the water than you need to and create huge resistance, that's something I think I'll be working on for a long time. So that's what I'm doing.
One of my issues has been, I was hesitant prior to this no pool period in our lives, because I had some subscapular instability in my left shoulder. So the last 2 swims I took, like the first 100, every time I'd swing my arm up, I'd feel like this twinge shoot through the shoulder. And so I was hesitant to swim anything greater than 500 intervals. Because when I was doing a 2K, I'd end up with tennis elbow or something like that the next day, just because of the inequality in one of my shoulders versus the other. So I'm spending this time in isolation doing more dry land exercises, exploring the world of YouTube videos on subscapular exercises and the various toys I have around the house to do that. So yes, maybe the cardiovascular will be under and less attuned in the water, but I'm hoping to have a little bit more equilibrium across my shoulders to be diligent when I get back in the water.
Nice.
What do you think, Jeff?
I'm not worried. I'll be fine. I was just never that great, so. I was so new. I just finally got to where I could go do a lap instead of a length, and then catch my breath and be thankful I didn't die. So I guess finally just going back and forth doing a whole lap right before this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I was real great. I'll be fine.
I've been thinking about this, and I just figure that I'll just it'll just be less time, less amount of or less distance at first.
Yeah.
It'll be the same with running, just less distance and just build back up again.
I think because our hardwiring, the patterns that we use, those will be there when we'll get back in the water and we'll be there. And what I'm expecting is that, and I have a habit of getting in and swimming very gently at the beginning. So I have to be really careful because I'm expecting it to feel good, like the patterns are there. And then I'll just want to, I'll just do another 300. I'll just do another 300. Yeah. And then it'll be fine. But then the next day I'll be like, oh. So yeah, like with you, I think I'll need to just really use restraint and just set a plan. All right, just going to do a half an hour this first time, 40 minutes the next time.
Yeah.
Just very, very careful. I've noticed I regularly do some push-ups and pull-ups and things like this, but I've always noticed when I was training for swimming more heavily, I did feel a little conflict in my joints just from doing pull-ups and stuff. They just, if I did them too much, so I would be much lighter if I was doing more aggressive swimming than if I was doing pull-ups and push-ups. Mm-hmm. But now that I haven't been swimming, I've been doing more than the pull-ups are quite comfortable now for me, and then push-ups. And so now I'm kind of curious. I'm a little bit stronger in my upper body than I normally am, a little bit bigger slightly. Don't get any impressions, I'm not bulging, but I'm a little bit heavier, but that's not necessarily to my swimming advantage. Swimming doesn't bulk me up. So I'm gonna, it'll be interesting to see with a little bit, is it helpful? Is it not helpful now that I've had no conflict between the two activities? Because that swimming motion is very, very specific. Yeah. It just works the muscles in a certain way, and then push-ups, pull-ups are fundamental movements for the body, but they're not the same as swimming by any means. So I'll have to keep an eye on that as well, and maybe back off a little bit on the push-ups and pull-ups as I get back into swimming. So hopefully we'll get to run these experiments very, very soon. So otherwise, I'll be driving somewhere to some. The problem is going to a lake. It's cold water, and if you can't just jump in and do a half an hour swim if you're not used to cold water, it's like I would prefer to have a few weeks, and every day I would get in. I'd get in for 5 minutes, the next day for 8 minutes, and the next day for 10, and just gradually work up over a few weeks. But you can't do that if you're just going to drive an hour to a lake. That
means we have to do cold showers and bath soaks instead.
Yeah, that helps a little. But
have to get into the Wim Hof thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sit in a bathtub full of ice cubes, or I don't know. I found that I found it was, that transition last summer at the camp. The most challenging thing was not swimming outdoors or not swimming without a wall, but it was the temperature of the water.
Mm-hmm.
was hard. I mean, it made me want to breathe faster than I like to breathe. And then, so I spent devoted a lot of energy to just trying to calm myself down, because if you breathe rapidly, you get anxious, whether you want to or not. It's just an autonomic response.
Yeah.
And so I was just like consciously trying to calm down, you're fine, just gentle and keep going. And, but, and I think by the last day, it was starting to feel better. Mm-hmm. Like I could stay in the water longer and be comfortable and not get, but it's still, I think, the water temperature at that lake, if I did it again, I think I would wear a wetsuit. Okay. I found the shorty not quite enough.
Not quite enough. Okay.
Yeah, I was very comfortable.
I mean, I think the last day I did one swim where I was swim continuously for about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And when I got out, I was really cold. and it took me a while to warm up.
Yeah.
I took a hot shower for about 15 minutes when I got back to the cabin because I was not like in any danger. I don't think I was about to become hypothermic, but I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was cold. I was kind of like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's something like it takes months to develop, a adaptation to that kind of water. It's wonderful once it happens.
Yeah.
You just feel, because, once I was adapted to colder water in the Mediterranean, I mean, I could be out there and I wouldn't want to sit there. I wouldn't want to just sit there. But if I was swimming, I could go an hour in the water and I would cool down to like a level. If, obviously it wasn't extremely cold, and I would kind of just stay there. I mean, no, I wouldn't stay there. I would keep going down slightly, but it was so gradual that I could keep going for a while and get out and not have. The more adapted I was, the less difficult the recovery afterwards was. That didn't take as long, wasn't as uncomfortable.
Right.
Another factor of those lakes too to take into consideration, Alex, is the higher elevation.
Oh, the altitude, yeah.
That was bothering me a bit. I was fully comfortable. I keep a extra layer of, I call my fat my thermal layer. So, I keep that on year round, and I had an adequate suit. But
what was it? Was it 5,000 at Cultus Lake? I can't remember now.
Feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
5,
I found that I was having shortness of breath. I'd get my air in and I was fine, but it just felt inadequate to what I was used to. So that was another factor.
That was something I realized too, Matt, after, we looked at that, at one of the videos, and I thought about this afterwards, and where my body position in the water was not bad, but I was about 6 to 8 inches below the surface. And I think because I had to slow my turnover rate down so much that it was hard not to sink a bit. Because I was trying not to gasp. I was trying to take a little sip of air and not the every time you breathe, and that that the combination of the thin air and the really cold water was like, oh, okay, this is really challenging. That was still really fun, but
breath control is critical. It's one of the most fundamental pieces we have to work on if we're going to swim in cooler water, because you have to get the breathing under control from the beginning, because it's not only just physiologically, but even mentally too. We don't want to hyperventilate. We don't want to get to that position, because that's going to cause more stress and lower cognitive function and all sorts of things.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still not sure what's happening this summer, but the thought I had, of course, it's the part of the problem with the place where we had the camp is that you have to schedule the accommodation so far in advance.
Yeah.
Because they book out.
Yeah, but even the campground you have to book out, 6 months in advance.
So what would be ideal would be to be up there for 4 or 5 days before you actually get a camp and swim every day for 30 minutes.
Prepare for the camp. You got to do a camp to prepare for the camp.
I mean, when you're going through that big a change of, sea level to 5,000 feet and 78 degrees to 63 degrees, maybe 60, 64, depending on what part of the lake you're in. If you get out in the middle, it's probably even colder.
Yeah.
So those are just real big adjustments to make. But
I mean, Cultus was up there. I liked it more than Elk Lake. We could conceivably, you could stay in Bend, on the ski resort side and just drive the 45 minutes to the lake each day. I mean, that's a possibility, or Airbnb or something. Crescent Lake was really pretty. It was nice and shallow.
I thought Crescent Lake was nice, and because you could swim in the shallows for a long way.
It was very gradual.
I thought it was really ideal because that was challenge number 3. For a pool swimmer would be like, oh crap, I can't see the bottom anymore.
It disappeared.
Now I'm looking into an infinite abyss, and I'm short of breath, and I can't see anybody. So oh my God, calm down.
We didn't go out over the deep blue too often. I mean, we generally were near the shore, but nonetheless,
No,
you do.
We were
dropped,
near the shore. I mean, the first day I wandered kind of out from the shore, and when we did Elk Lake, we got pretty far from the shore because we swam across the.
Yeah, we cut across.
Not for me, since I swam in a huge circle. And then,
to the left, to the
you had a
left.
tilt in your rudder. You kept
and then I had to double back to find you guys. So I was like,
yeah, long swim.
that was a long swim.
But it's funny. The body, they've done numbers about swimmers, even in lap pools, the Olympians and everything. The duration of time you actually travel slower when you're in shallower water.
Yeah.
So that's another factor to take into account.
Yeah.
So anytime you create distance between yourself and a surface area that has reverberation and feedback, you actually can travel a lot smoother and faster over those open areas.
Probably disturbing the water less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I definitely feel slower in the courthouse pools. They're shallow and nice, but if you ever go to the Croc Center, Jeff or Denise, you ever go? It's nice there because they've got a deep end and really wide lanes, and so it just psychologically, and I think my times are a little bit better when I swim in a deeper water and like that. It is nicer to be in water like that. But there's a reason why they make Olympic pools at least 2 meters deep, if not 3. In certain ways, yeah. So any thoughts we talked about breathing last time. I was talking about breathing technique. Any thoughts or questions there on just breathing? The basic thesis there was that we need to work on our breathing on land and just normal life, because that not only supports our health and our well-being and our cognitive and our decision-making clarity, all the good health benefits now and later, but our patterns in daily life get the muscles and the patterns set up so that it's easier to access those while we're swimming. But if we don't have those patterns in our daily life, it's not likely that they're magically going to appear under the stress of swimming. So having this good diaphragmatic breathing, having that as a normal pattern, we have to work those muscles, and they're meant to work most of the time. But people, if we're not using them in our regular life, then they're not fit. Even if we can consciously make ourselves breathe correctly under effortful swimming, the muscles won't last very long because they're going to tire out because they're not used to doing that kind of work. So what are your thoughts a little bit? How do you feel like you're doing on land in your normal life with your breathing? Obviously we are breathing because we're alive, but so now that I brought it up, everybody takes a big breath.
I haven't been able to develop like a real consistent practice regimen. I do work on it, and I've done a combination of the Belissa Vranich stuff and McEwen stuff. With the Oxygen Advantage, I've mostly tried to spend periods of time just sitting and working on 4 or 5 breaths per minute, and just slower breaths, nasal breathing. That's like his first stop. Like that's the first improvement you need to make in your breathing. You need to breathe less. And he has a good
breathe less. Save breaths.
Yeah, well, he's got a very good explanation, based on the amount of dead space in your lungs with every breath you take. So if you're breathing 12 times per minute, you actually have less exposure in the alveolar region to oxygen than if you breathe 6 times a minute. And it has to do with the fact that with every breath, you have roughly the same amount of dead space in your lungs that's really not getting any functional gas exchange, regardless of whether you're breathing slow or fast. So just breathing slower, and then of course the nitric oxide thing, breathing through the nose, is cool. And so I've been doing that, and then doing some of the Belissa Vranich stuff with the cat-cow, books on your stomach, lying down, and working on that. And that's about as far as I've gotten. Have you done much with the breath holding? The taking the steps after an exhale and trying to get it up to 30, and it's real to me. It's aversive, that feeling of running out of air, which he says is so good for your lungs.
You know, I need to study that because what I want to do is actually incorporate some of that into running, because if I go out on a run, I will insert some sort of a challenge into it. It might be a little sprint burst like I did today. Every half a mile, for roughly about 15 seconds, I just go into a sprint mode and then I back off. But another one is like every half mile, I could do a breath hold and then just do that exercise for a while. And then that would be challenging my system metabolically in a different way. Because all of it is what it's doing is I'm just trying to add variety into my run. And so today I wanted to just, I like the feeling of changing up the speed, and my body feels so much better. If I just run the same pace monotonously, my body actually feels more stiff afterwards.
No,
if I change, but the breathing technique would be really good to insert.
Do the breath holds if you take walking breaks while you run. So if you're doing the Jeff Galloway thing where you run a certain amount and then walk a certain amount, you can do the breath hold thing, which I don't know how it would work if you're running. If you're running, I have a hard enough time when I'm walking, because the recommendation is that you do the breath hold after an exhale.
Yeah, empty the lungs.
Empty the lungs, and then the idea is to just walk normally. And he says if you have healthy respiration, you should get to a point where you're very comfortable with 40 steps. Well, I found that easier said than done. Around 20, I'm starting to feel like.
Alex, have you practiced it for sedentary before doing it active?
Yes, he's got a test that you do where you do that exhale and
the bolt test, right?
Right, the bolt test. And I found that my times with that vary, depending on how relaxed I am, whether I've eaten recently, a whole bunch of things. I mean, there are times when 30 seconds seems fine. But there are other times when I'm like, I don't know what's going. It was 20 seconds. I felt real air hunger. So, but I am interested in working on that. But because there's a slight amount of aversion involved, I've had a harder time forcing myself to let's get going with this.
So that's interesting. The Oxygen Advantage program, it's very intriguing. It's got lots of very interesting, I think very useful things.
There might be a few. I found some Wim Hof online, Alex, I could send to you, and he does he builds up the increments of the exhale. So I think he starts at I don't remember if it's 45 seconds or 30, and he's doing them stationary, of course. But finding a guided session can help with the aversion, and you can look ahead and see how far, so you mentally preparing and know what you're expecting. It's not going to be a surprise about what's going to come. And then also giving yourself a little grace period, that if in those first couple you feel that apprehension, you can look at the clock, you see that it's almost at 30 seconds, but you can't quite.
That clock can be a friend or an enemy when you're trying to hold your breath.
I took little sips, and it wasn't a sip enough to give me oxygen, but it was like a trick into my brain. Like I knew I could make it, but it was really uncomfortable. So I just took a little gasp and let that out, and it allowed me to settle my nerves a little bit when I started feeling that strain. And that helped me reach new. So, okay, now I know what 30 seconds feels like. Now I know what 45 and so on. And like you, my different time sessions have had different results, and there's many contributing factors.
Wow.
But I went on to a live conversation with some people during one, and someone was saying, when I started, the 2 minutes was really difficult, and now it's really easy. And so kind of like the muscles, not only are you trying to psychosomatically prepare yourself for what you're doing, you are also equipping those muscles to do it. So it's a partnership. But when you get to the 2 minutes, it's euphoric and scary and exciting at the same time.
There's about to pass out.
So I just ran across another thing on breathing. Katie Bowman is a biomechanist. She lives actually up here in Pacific Northwest, up in Puget Sound area. Katie Bowman, just like it sounds there. She has a couple podcasts, the latest ones where the last two, she talks about breathing there. And she looks at it from a different view as a biomechanist, looking at the shaping of the body and the movement of the body, and how she really advocates for becoming capable of breathing in a wide variety of ways, using the full range, because the body, it's so amazing how the body can move, and we can breathe in so many different positions, whereas some animals have to stay in a certain position in order to breathe. We can be climbing, we can be twisting, you can be a gymnast, you can be wrestling, you can be sleeping, whatever, and we can breathe in all these positions. And they all tap into the versatility of the body and the different ways that breathing can be made to happen inside the body.
Right.
So she advocates for a more diverse workout of the body. So her latest podcasts are really good. She talks about shape and mechanics, and she has a couple in the past.
So, do you remember the name of her podcast, or you just look for in the podcast world?
I think it just look up Katie Bowman podcast.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah.
So bouncing off of what Matt said, I was coaching someone on this.
Sorry, just quick. Her website is called Nutritious Movement.
Nutritious Movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to look it up right now.
And what she does is you can listen to the audio, or she has a transcript of the entire audio, so you can like read what she says, or you can listen. Either one. It's really nice.
Nice.
So bowing off of Matt's, you could approach integrating deep breathing into, oops, I sent that to the wrong person. You could integrate deep breathing incrementally, much like we do in the pool, and where as adults we have to retrain our brain. And so going from either laying down or sitting to actively walking or running might be a little much of an overload for your body. And so much like you have to on-ramp it, you have to combine that internal focus to your breathing that's taking up all this attention and focus, and start to learn how to, pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time. So it's not so much of a conscious effort. And so I recommended, if you started laying down, move to sitting up, to standing, to doing something that you do rotely, like washing the dishes or wiping the counter or writing down your grocery list, and trying to do your deep breathing at the same time. And that way you're incorporating the multitasking with the breathing and building more complex patterns.
So now we have the running monks, and now we have breathing monks. So we could start a new branch.
Yeah, that's right.
Get special robes, color our hair.
I have plenty of time to practice, and basically my house is really clean now. I can't go anywhere. I don't have anything to do. I think I'll sweep the living room again.
Obviously, you don't have any grandkids visiting, right? My house is a mess.
Sadly, that's the hardest thing about all of this for me. I can't go see my grandkids, so I miss them, and it's going to be probably a long time before I can go see them.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Well, and as vulnerable as you've been to getting ill every time you see them,
probably not a good idea for me to be around them right now.
If you need a mess in your house, you can just get a puppy. I think that's what Jeff and Denise are. They got bored. They decided the house was too clean.
I have a dog, and I have 2 cats and a cat door, so I have lots of dirt transmission going on. No shortage of things to do. So I'm gonna have to run here pretty soon. It's gonna be dinner time here.
Any parting thoughts or comments today?
No, it was great. Nice to chat with you guys, and nice to see you. Where are the other folks? I saw Willamette Valley on a sweatshirt.
Yeah, Willamette Valley Tri Club.
Salem.
Oh, in Salem. Okay.
Yeah, they're locals.
Nice. Close to the coach.
Not as much right now because things are not opening for us. It may better be in Bend.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had Lane County has been pretty good. I mean, pretty good is sort of like I'm not sure if it's actually really good, because what I read is that if the virus hasn't been widespread where you are, it will be. So, so it's like, okay, we're doing great now, but that just means it's going to be worse in the fall. But
that's kind of part of the argument.
Yeah.
And we just pushing this off. But the point, I think, is that we give it time to find a cure, find something. Don't overwhelm the system. I understand.
Yeah.
It's passing around. We're just trying to slow it.
Yes. Get enough time to
But you
and
think-
resources.
I mean, in defense of our struggle here, if we were going to err on one side, you know, if the authorities didn't crack down and try to restrict things, and we had an extraordinary number of, you know, spreading infections everywhere, I mean, there would just be hell to pay, you know, for the authorities.
That's what
that
happened
didn't
in New
respond
York. I mean,
aggressively enough.
it took off too rapidly for them to respond to it, and so they, you know,
False
I mean, here
confidence.
my neighbor is an ER nurse at the hospital, and he said it's been extraordinarily quiet because people are not coming in, and they've had very few people There's no one hospitalized in Lane County right now. And,
Well, that means
and we've had 2 deaths.
But then there's no patients even for other stuff flowing through the health system.
No, that's
So
right.
my wife's facility, they don't have any. They normally are filled with elective surgeries, and there's no patients.
That's right. So with the, you know, one medical provider in Portland laid off 800 people.
Whoa.
Because nobody was coming in for elective procedures, for checkups, for anything, and they did, you know, they just laid people off. So yeah, but anyway, I mean, it's going to be an interesting ride.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
out of this, we'll get a better organized health system.
Maybe.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Who knows?
I saw that the in a recent survey, the percentage of Americans that were in favor of universal health care has gone up from 47% to 68% during the course of the coronavirus.
No.
There's an article in the New York Times this last weekend.
Wow.
So
Well, we'll see. We'll see what we have the political will to do. Hey, I'll sign off here. It's good seeing you all. And
see everybody.
I don't know if I'll schedule more next week or in 2 weeks from now, but I'll keep doing these here and there.
Okay. Well, you got one Saturday morning, right? Is it going to be the same thing, or?
Well, I'll bring up. Yeah, I'm gonna bring up topics, but then I expect more people there, and so the subjects that will come up will probably be different. So.
Okay. Well, if
I come with something in mind, but I'm definitely wanting to go where I see the interest of the group is at instead of pushing the agenda.
Okay.
One thing I want to mention before we go, a little advertisement here. As you know, I'm enrolled as a graduate student in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology. And part of this program in this term in particular, I need to start doing actual coaching, like life coaching, goal coaching for people. So I'm going to be sending out advertisements looking for some people who would like to receive some of that kind of coaching attention. Now, obviously, I'm a swim coach, run coach. It's not like that. You don't come to me in this role as a coach to have me tell you what to do. Instead, it's me facilitating a conversation so that you as a person can bring out the ideas and the answers and the perspective that you already have within you to help you tap into your resources to solve your needs or to achieve your goals. So it's a different kind of relationship that I'm, stepping into, and then going to be offering this. And I need to practice these. I've done a lot of this has been infused in what I've done for the last 25 years. So it's not new to me, but there's a pretty specific format to how you engage with somebody and you zero in on what their needs are and their goals are. So I need to practice doing this. So I'm going to look for people. So either if you are interested, it could be a goal, even small thing or a big thing, it could be just a personal goal, a life project, just working out a problem, looking on a solution to something in life. Could be career change, could be, anything. Could be have to do with just improving health in some way or improving experience. So whatever, it could be small or large. So it'd be like probably at least 4 sessions, so we could work through some things. And then it would also be involved at some point, with your permission, I would videotape, just like we're doing here. the interaction so that I could review that and work on a technique, and also my instructors could review that and help me point out what I need to work on as far as my technique and skills, stuff like that. So if you or if somebody you know might be interested in that, just you can always send me an email to inquire more, and then I can talk and or explain more of what that would look like. So just wanted to plant that idea there. So,
all right.
Coach Matt could be Coach Matt in a totally different way. So, all right, I'll let you guys go this evening. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.